Morning folks, I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters in the Pathfinder School. And what we're going to do today at our blacksmith shop is we're going to make a combination blanket pin, awl, flint striker, and belt buckle. So it will be able to be used for all of those things. It'll be a very multifunctional piece of gear. Now I've carried them on and off on my website for several years. I've done videos on this subject several years ago when this concept was first developed with a buddy of mine named Joe Kellum, who's one of my instructors at the Pathfinder School that works for the Michigan Department of Natural Resources. And now the gentleman who used to make them for me can no longer supply our store with that product because he's not blacksmithing anymore due to health issues. So I'm going to redevelop this blanket pin striker awl and belt buckle into something that is a little bit improved from what we had before. And the one I'm going to make today is going to be a little fancier than what we're going to sell on our website. But I wanted to show you the process of how they're made in case you want to duplicate it yourself in your own backyard or forge. Stay with me. Okay, so just like any other forging project, we need to start off with a design. And I think what we're going to do here is I've got a piece of 1 inch by 8 inch 1095 flat stock. And I've had a lot of guys asking me where they can get this stuff from. And I plan to get this kind of stuff up on our website. What we do is we buy this in large sheets for our knife shop in Indianapolis, and we have it cut down to manageable pieces that we can use here at the forging shop for different things like the neck knives, the herb knives, and those projects. And this also will work fine, and we'll have some scrap left over off of it. We could probably even get 2 of these strikers out of this one piece. So I want the striking surface, I'm going to try to kind of split this in half by eyeballing it. And I want the striking surface on this thing to be about 2 inches. So I'm going to come down on this thing to the 2 inch mark. As a matter of fact, I think I'm going to go 2 1/4 on that. Just to give myself a little bit, maybe even 2 1/2. Just to give myself some room to round it off if I want to down the road. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull a tail into this thing. So this is going to actually wrap over the top when I'm done. So I need this tail portion that I can pound down and round out. So I'm going to bring that down. I'm going to make it a little wider than that. I'll cut inside the line. Now I don't need this total length for sure for my tail. It's going to wrap all the way around this side for the body of my blanket pin, but I'm going to put some twists in this when I'm done. So I think I'm going to leave this full length for now, start with that, and work it from there. You can obviously see that I can get another one from the opposite side of this very easily. So this one piece will easily make 2 of these tools. So let's get this cut out on the bandsaw real quick, and we'll get to work. Now remember, the one thing we're trying to do is think about this in terms of a belt buckle. So we've got to bring that twisted part around enough that the striker's on one side and there's a nice part on the other side where you can put your belt through and your pin. And I'll show you that later when we get done. But we're going to have to do a little tweaking here to get it where we need it. This portion here needs to come forward just a little bit, like this, and then out like this and in. And that gives us that flat area here where the pin's going to lay across our belt the way it should. So your pin will lay here, and this will be your buckle and your striker. And we can go ahead and grind this into a curve as well to match things up a little bit right after we heat treat. So let's heat it up, scrub it down, and then we'll heat treat it. See where the striker portion of it is, and then we'll put the pin on it. Twist that a little tighter, and then bring it in. Then I want to flatten things out real good and make sure that we're nice and flat right there. Press that just a little bit like that. And then we'll get a wire brush. Scrub all the slag off of it real good before we heat treat it. And the thing to remember is we're trying to get the striking surface hard. We don't want the rest of it brittle so that it will snap. So we're going to kind of heat treat this a special way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to quench the edge of the striker in oil until it starts to lose color. Then I'm going to go back and quench the edge in water, and as the piece loses color more up the blade, I'm going to quench the whole thing in oil. But I'm only going to quench the blade in that oil because I don't want to cool the body of the striker down enough to make it brittle. So here we go. We go first to the oil, then to the water, and then back to the oil. And again, I don't have the entire piece in the water, only the striker portion. Once everything loses complete color, then I'll go ahead and put the rest of it in the oil. So the next thing we need to do is make our pin, and that's just a simple piece of round stock. It doesn't have to be high carbon steel. It can just be a regular hot roll or cold roll round stock for that, of any kind of steel that you can find at a hardware store, whatever the case may be. And we're just going to take an area of this pin that's about wide enough to wrap it around, flatten it out just like this. Taper it in just a little bit and flatten it. Okay, so now that we've got our pin cut to length here, we can start to shape it the way we want it. And I'm going to take the bottom of it and kind of trim out a little bit of a shelf on the bottom of that pin in a straight flat, just so it lays nice against the front of this. Then I'm going to come in here and make two sides this direction, one there and one here. Again, keep it cool. Now I've got 3 sides on this. If you include my shelf side here. And I can come in here now and just put one more grind on here. Nice and slow. I don't want it overly sharp. But I want it sharp enough to use for an awl as well. That looks pretty good to me, just like that. Okay, so here's our belt buckle. I'm looking in the camera backwards here, so it's a little bit difficult for me to do this, but try to get it right for you here. You can see how that sits on your belt. Pants are a little bit too big for me. I hope that looks alright, I can't really tell. Okay, so if we take this striker off of the belt and rotate this pin to the top, we can just slide it over and hold it in our hand like a normal striker at that point to use for striking our flint. Now the other thing that we wanted from this tool was for it to function as a blanket pin. So we should be able to throw a blanket or a blanket shard around our shoulders and take this pin and push it through like this, and then push it over and rotate it around so that it holds. So it does function very well as a blanket pin as well. So now we have a blanket pin, a belt buckle, and a flint striker. Now the final thing that we wanted from this project was to have a tool that would also work as a small miniature awl that we could use for driving holes in things like leather. And that's just a matter of figuring out how to hold this thing to get a good grip on it and keep it straight. And then we should be able to drive holes by twisting it into a piece of leather. And this one here is a piece of thick, heavy pigskin. So if it'll drive a hole in this pigskin, it'll drive a hole in about anything we want it to. And it just needs to bore a hole in there big enough to be able to stitch it. And that's working fairly well. We definitely have a hole in there. Again, this is pretty thick pigskin. We may have to push it from both sides. But we definitely have a hole that we can stitch through if we need to, that goes all the way through the material. So it will work as an improvised awl as well, and that awl could be used on anything from leather to barks to canvas and other types of material, anything that we would need to punch or drill a hole into very quickly. So we have a very multifunctional tool here that we made today, and it works exactly as we intended it to. All right, folks, well, I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters in the Pathfinder School, and I appreciate you joining me here today for another video out here at the Pathfinder Forge. I appreciate your views. I appreciate your support. I thank you for everything you do for our school, for our family, and for our business, for all of our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends, and I'll be back with another video as soon as I can. Thanks, guys.